Good evening. We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. At this time, our clerk will read the roll.
Bolden.
Aye.
Boyes.
Aye.
Connor. Davis. DeShazier.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Garrett.
Present.
Hannah.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present except for Councilwoman Davis.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, would you please stand at this time as we are led in prayer by Joe Tucker, who serves as the Executive Director of South Street Ministries. Immediately following our prayer, I'm going to ask if Councilman Kamer will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, we quiet our hearts, still our bodies. We remember friends and neighbors that are no longer with us in the city. I'm thankful for the city of Akron and the leaders here in this room. God, we pray a blessing on them as they discern, as they govern, as they vote, as they direct and lead a city that we care about deeply. God, give us the fruits of your Spirit, love, peace, patience, kindness, to lead well. Pray for accord, even in disagreements, even in different opinions and different viewpoints, that we would see and respect the image of God in one another. Thanks for the friends in this room, the men and women that have led and cared and served. And God, we pray a blessing on the leaders here, on the residents here, and on the city we care about deeply. Pray these things in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The motion to approve the minutes passes 12-0.
At this time, we will move to our public comment period. We have two individuals who have signed up to participate. I'm going to ask if you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk. Is Matthew here? Yes. Thank you, Matthew. And is John? John, are you here with us? Thank you.
Could you please raise your right hand? Could you please raise your right hand?
Speak loud.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you will have 3 minutes to speak to this body, and we're going to start off with Matthew, okay?
Hello. So my name is Matthew. I'm an Akron citizen. I'm here with the SUMA is Not for Sale Coalition. We are a coalition of community members and SUMA employees that are opposed to the announced acquisition of SUMA by Hatco, which is owned by a venture capital firm called General Catalyst. We have been sounding the alarm on this deal since the letter of intent to acquire SUMA was first announced in January. SUMA Health is the largest employer and care provider in Summit County in Akron. It is a nonprofit health system. If Hatco acquires SUMA, it will be a for-profit corporation. We have been speaking out against this deal because it's bad for the workers at SUMA, it is bad for the patients, and it will be bad for the community of Akron. So far, we have not received any support from politicians with the exception of James Hardy, who is no longer in this body, but who spoke up bravely in January. I was just at Summit County Council. I asked them if any of them oppose the for-profit corporatization of SUMA, would you please raise your hand? And when I did that, some of them got quite offended because none of them raised their hand and they accused me of calling them out when I just asked them a simple question to measure their support as our elected officials regarding a deal that could have potentially negative consequences for the people of Akron. So I pose the same question to this body. Again, I only do this because most of the people of Akron that we have talked to, we have not come across a single person who is in favor of this acquisition. When we tell them, do you want SUMA to be a for-profit corporation? They say, no, we want our health care to serve our needs, not to serve the profit of a California-based corporation, a venture capital firm. So I will ask the question of this body of city councilors here, if you oppose SUMA becoming a for-profit corporation, could you please raise your hand? We want to know who the allies are of the working class in Akron in this body.
And Matthew, just so that we're clear, during your public comment period, you have 3 minutes to speak to this body. This body is not going to give you a response during that time, okay? But I am sure that council members afterwards would be more than happy to speak with you, okay? Including myself.
Okay, yeah, so again, I want to raise this point of concern that the working class people are opposed to this deal. So far, every politician we talked to has said, oh, I can't do anything about it, there's nothing I can do. We want politicians to be brave and speak up against this and support the people of Akron, many of whom are opposed to this deal. The SUMA employees are worried about their, if it becomes a for-profit, they lose their non-profit student loan forgiveness pathway. If it becomes a for-profit, patients will be charged more because SUMA will have to make a profit. So again, I'm speaking out for SUMA's not for sale. Please be brave. Please break the brave stance and stand with the people of Akron. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. John?
Hello, I'm new at this. The reason I'm speaking, I moved into Akron about 8 years ago, and the reason I'm here tonight is I can't believe that they don't take better care of the roads that they have. I mean, it just looks like there's nothing being done on the streets mostly that are traveled. Like people are going to and from work every day, and they got to drive over those bumpy streets. And on Veterans Day, I remember Biden had like a press conference after he was at St. Arlington's cemetery, and he said that he was appropriating all that money, 450-some billion for the military and 450 billion for upgrading the cities, seeing that the bridges were inspected, seeing that the lead-based paints was taken off the old houses and upgrade the neighborhoods, and also taking care of the roads. And I don't see any of that done. I'm disappointed. I know one time I saw there's bumps in the road. Well, I go to church at Blessed Trinity. From my house on Alfeda Avenue all the way down to the expressway, there's 25 real bad humps like. And I saw one time they had the Highway Department or Maintenance Department of Akron, they had a large grinder, and it was grinding the hump down on that street on Talmadge Avenue after you cross over Home Avenue. And I can't see why. I bet 50% of the roads would be smoother if they would go and grind those humps down. And I know they have that machinery because I saw it. And it was doing a good job. And that's all I have to say. I'm concerned about, I was disappointed in, I wasn't in Akron very much, but when I got married second time, and moved here, I couldn't believe the roads were so bad, and they're not. Only time he fixed anything is if there's a water leak and they have to dig it up, then they fill that back in. But I travel the roads almost every day, and the roads are still in the same condition. But that's about all I have to say. I'm very much concerned about that. The money's appropriated. Thanks.
John, thank you so much. After the meeting, I'm just going to ask if you will meet with your ward council person, Councilwoman Connor, so that we can get an idea of those streets that you're concerned about, okay? It's in your ward, okay? He says Ward 10 on here. Okay, thank you. That concludes our public comment period. We'll now move into the rest of our agenda. Before you is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The consent agenda passes 12-0.
We'll now move into old business. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to request that we place item 5, excuse me, on the consent agenda. 6 through and including 9 file. Those are the petitions for the conditional use request that we had approved this afternoon. Then time on the balance of the agenda. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Time will be granted. Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick.
Continued time, please.
Thank you. Time will be granted. That concludes our old business. We'll now move into new legislation, starting with Budget and Finance.
Item number 1, offered by Lombardo, ordinance authorizing the Director of Law or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Voorhees, Sater, Seymour, and Pease LLP for the provision of professional legal services for the City of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Consent agenda, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 2, offered by Lombardo, ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with GovInvest, Inc. for compensation management software and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Consent agenda, please.
this item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 3, offered by Lombardo, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $3,100,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of acquiring and equipping motor vehicles, composting equipment, and other equipment for certain divisions in the city and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 4, offered by Lombardo, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $3 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds in anticipation of the collection of special assessments heretofore levied to retire notes issued for the purpose of paying the property owner's portion of the costs of paving, grading, constructing, reconstructing, and installing curbs, concrete sidewalks, storm sewers, sanitary sewers, and water mains, altogether with the necessary appurtenances thereto to serve the residents at Good Park Subdivision, in accordance with the petition submitted by NDC Good Park LLC and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 5, offered by Lombardo, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $1,700,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued for the purpose of providing funds to pay the costs of the acquisition of certain real property in Coventry Township and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended, and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 6, offered by Lombardo. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $5 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of improving municipal buildings and facilities in the city by constructing, reconstructing, renovating, repairing roofs, remodeling, relocating, making site and other improvements, planning and designing facilities, and acquiring and installing related equipment, all as applicable, designated or to be designated by the Director of Public Services, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Again, the committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
The rules have been suspended, and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 7, offered by Lombardo. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $5 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued to pay the costs of the renovation of the Oliver O'Kasich Building for use as office facilities for the city and the state, and for use as the new Akron Municipal Court administrative facilities, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended, and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 8, offered by Lombardo. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $3 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of improving the city's municipal parks and recreational system by constructing, improving, and equipping parks and recreational facilities, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
The rules have been suspended, and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 9, offered by Lombardo. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $40 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to retire notes issued for the purpose of providing funds to pay the costs of various improvements in the city, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended, and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 10, offered by Lombardo. Ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of notes in a maximum principal amount of $12 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds to pay the costs of constructing, reconstructing, and otherwise improving certain streets in the city, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further, Madam President.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended, and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 11, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with Akron, Barberton, Summit County Continuum of Care for daily operation costs, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will be referred.
Item number 12, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with Community Support Services, Inc. for the operation of an emergency overnight shelter, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco,
Refer.
this item will also be referred.
Item number 13, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept the Continuum of Care Planning Grant Funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, authorizing the Director of Planning and Urban Development to enter into all necessary contracts for the operation and term of the programs and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Or the committee is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Thank you. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Madam President. This is federal funds that we receive referencing the continuum of care, HUD funds that are utilized in the continuum of care that provides comprehensive homeless services to individuals and families. They are a planning organization primarily, but they also provide a balance for emergency and rapid rehousing, traditional and permanent supportive housing and services to address the needs of the homeless within our community. They also review and rank proposals as they come in, and they ensure that these funds that we receive from the federal government for homelessness basically within our community complies with all the federal regulations that come forward from the federal government. There was a time whenever our planning department operated this and kind of ran it. Now it's a nonprofit, and this nonprofit brings in a number of organizations. I want to say that we do a pretty good job here in the city of Akron, but I don't believe this job is, we can always improve. And I know that that's the mission of the continuum of care, and this is one way we support them, and there's going to be more, as you've seen in the previous two that were read in, that we're looking at and hoping to probably vote on next week. So with that, we're recommending approval this evening. Thanks.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 14, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the installation of 2 replacement substation transformers at the Water Reclamation Facility and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda, please.
Thank you. This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 15, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Burgess and Nyepel, Inc. for the implementation of the CSO Program Management Team Operations Maintenance Project on a 5-year cycle and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda.
This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 16, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids with an engineering consulting firm or firms for the supplemental engineering services required for the 2025 Capital Investment and Community Development Program and the 2025 operating budget, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Consent agenda.
This item will also be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 17, offered by Kamer, resolution approving and confirming the appointment of Gabriel Forte, Brittany Robinson, Patrick Selman, and Jackie Ricciuti, and the reappointment of Patricia Wyatt as members of the Akron Tree Commission and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Thank you. Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
All right, thank you. These are reappointments and new appointments to the Tree Commission. And with that, we're asking for passage.
Okay. Thank you so much. No further comment, Councilman Fusco? Okay, thank you. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This resolution passes 12-0.
That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now move into our committee assignments.
Madam President,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I abstained from voting on number 4.
Yes, we did not have that.
I did not hear that.
We did not hear
Item
that.
4 in new legislation?
Item 4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll now move into our committee assignments rules. Councilman McKittrick.
2 p.m.,
Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick.
2:15.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Lombardo.
3 p.m.
Parks and Recreation, Councilwoman Connor. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilman Kamer. Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian. Is there anything else coming before this body at this time? Councilwoman Boyce?
Thank you very much, Madam President. I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate Doug Taylor, city grant staff, and everyone in the Housing Department on being awarded $7.75 million for lead remediation in very low-income homes here in Akron. That is the largest amount awarded to any city in Ohio, even bigger than Columbus. So that's a big accomplishment. This group is doing a great job getting that money out the door, and I just wanted people to know they're a model for other cities in the country. So be proud, Akron. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman, for sharing that. Councilman Fusco?
I just want to comment briefly about some of the comments that were made earlier from the public, and we always appreciate their input. And I just want to say we had a lot of meetings around the sale of SUMA, a ton of meetings. I know one of our council representatives, Mr. Hanna, in which SUMA is housed in Ward 5, had community meetings with them and stood up many times and made it very clear his position on that. And I think all of us kind of weighed in whenever they were here, and I think it was more than once. And we all feel that sense of frustration, because I think we all know kind of where this is headed. Okay, but the thing of it is we deal with, and I understand it sounds like passing the buck or whatever, but we deal with zoning, we deal with city issues, and that is way above our pay grade, to be honest. I mean, it just is. And to go on record, I'll go on record, I think, almost all of us will, but the thing of it is there's nothing we can literally do to prevent that from happening. There's just not anything whatsoever that can be done by this city council, by the mayor, by the county. I don't even know if the state can do anything. And that seems to me, the state and the federal piece, those folks there are the ones that could perhaps influence something like that and see if change could occur, whereas folks that can't afford healthcare, that emergency situations, to make sure that the bottom line, and it's more of a nonprofit view of things in terms of taking care of people as it should be. But we were all very frustrated at that time, and like I said, I know Johnny Hanna, he's been very vocal on that, and appreciate his efforts on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Councilwoman Amobian?
Many of us attended the National League of Cities conference in Tampa this past week. And one of the areas that they focused on a lot in several of the sessions I went to was this whole issue around immigration. And I reached out to a former colleague who lives in the area on North Hill. And, we passed some time ago legislation regarding being a welcoming city, and we have been, and been very friendly and helpful to our immigrants. But part of the challenge we have now is that people are out there and very nervous, and many of them come here as legal refugees. However, some of them may not know that after you've been here a year, you have to change your status in order to continue to be legal. They have to apply for a green card, and some of them probably haven't done that. So I am planning to reach out to the International Institute and host a meeting or two along with my former colleague to see what we can do, because the federal government can issue some type of ordinance or statement of whatever law or whatever to state that they would not take any more applications for people to get green cards. Because you start with a green card before you apply for citizenship. And some people probably haven't done that. And I just found that out. So we have some citizens here who are in those different groups of refugees and foreigners who are probably illegal at this point because they haven't changed their status. And if they have any type of infraction, it could be, speeding ticket or whatever, they could have their name put on some type of list. So one of the things that we talked about, her name is Maya Biswa, and she does a lot of work with the immigrants, and she was sharing with me that there's some uneasiness and, discomfort because some people have not taken the next step. So their status has changed because the status you have for a year makes you eligible to work. You're eligible for Medicaid and some food stamps and different things, and you have to pay most of that back after you start working and stuff. But the problem now is that they're probably not here legally. And with all the talk about, doing this mass deportation, which is, sounds horrible, I think we just need to start reaching out to our immigrants in our community to see what we can do to help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman McKittrick?
Thank you, Madam President. This past week, I was able to attend the dedication of new station number 12. This is really, it's a great thing for the city. It's a great investment, not just in Ward 4, but also for the entire city, because it'll help for response out of the station because you're not moving rigs anymore. They're able to pull out immediately. The station itself is not being held up by wooden shoring in the basement like Station 12 and Station 2, so it's a lot safer for the personnel. I want to go on record saying thank you so much to the voters of Akron for passing issue number 4 to be able to have this happen. That was a big part of the puzzle to make this happen and build the new fire stations that we've had built. And I also want to go thank Deputy Chief Vober, because he had a tremendous amount of work in this, in the planning of it and looking at what needed to be done, what we did on the other stations, how it could be improved and to streamline the process. So thanks to Deputy Chief Vober. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Lombardo?
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to our narcotics officers and our SNUD unit. They've been sweeping the streets in my ward, and also like on Arlington Street, for example, just shutting down a gambling house where there was like video games recovered and of course a lot of money and meth and things like that and weapons. And again, even in Ward 2, there was like 6 different businesses that were raided. And again, the numbers are just astounding, but that's just all the more that they're doing to keep our city safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman, for sharing. Anything else coming before this body? We have a motion on the floor. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.